This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. Now you're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. So a big congratulations to Loughrea, Meelick Eyrecourt and Ballinasloe, all winning county titles at the weekend, and hard luck to Thomas's, Kinvara and Kiltormer just coming up short at the weekend. I'm joined by David Connors and Gerry Kearney to look ahead, or to look back, shall I say, on the county finals over the weekend. Loughrea just doing enough in the end to defeat St Thomas's 115 to 114. David, I'll come to you first, obviously, as a Thomas's man. A bit of a different experience, I suppose, for Thomas's supporters. First ever county final defeat, but I know it was tight in Everton at the end, but probably couldn't have too many complaints. Loughrea did seem like the better team throughout.
Absolutely, Paul. I don't think you'd have any complaints at all. But I think the final scoreline was probably very flattering to Thomas's at the end. I suppose they showed that characteristic have never been bet once again, but I suppose just left themselves with probably a little bit too much to do. And the concession at the goal, I suppose, down the home stretch was a bit of a killer blow. Loughrea as a whole, they were a fair bit better. They were a good bit. They were by quite a distance, should I say, the better team, I thought, fully deserving of their victory. I don't think Thomas's could have any complaints based on the result.
I know you're saying you're living in Loughrea now. Does it make things a bit more difficult this week?
Yeah, it makes it a bit of a challenge, all right. Yeah, no, in the lead up to the game, I had the little one pointing at the blue and yellow flags, and she was saying, "Oh, up Loughrea" and things like that. So I was trying to sway her, bringing her out to journeys out to Castledaly and Peterswell just to see the red and blue in advance. But I just look at the result is the result at the end of the day, Paul. Like it's I couldn't have any complaints, and like all I would say is huge congratulations to Loughrea. They fully deserve their victory. Great time for them as a club and everything like that. They're putting in huge work there, been huge suppliers of to the county team Galway wise, and they've given us huge entertainment down through the years as well. So massive congratulations to them and everyone involved with the club. It's not nice for your own club to be defeated, all right, absolutely, but look at sometimes you just have to take it on the chin and say you were beaten by the better team.
Gerry, I think it says a lot about Loughrea now to go back to back for the first time ever in their club's history.
Yeah, I think it's massive for probably this group of players to do this. Like, it hadn't been done before, and for Kieran Hanrahan to be or Ian Hanrahan to be back-to-back captain as well, and he's kind of been their leader the last few years. I think he's been there since Tommy Kelly came in as their captain, and I think he spoke really well afterwards, and you could see the joy in their faces, because it's not so long ago, lads, and they lost by 4 points to Cropwell, and everyone was writing them off. And I still felt going in on Saturday in the car that Thomas's would have been a hard bit. But to be fair to Loughrea, I just feel that the management team got their tactics spot on. They got their matchup spot on. And any day you have a full forward line that scores 1-9 and, out of 115, really, really good. Anthony Burns scored 5 points from play. And I have to say, the first touch of the Loughrea full forward line in the first half, lads, was a joy to watch. Anytime the ball went in, it was just one touch and it was in the hand. And they just had that little bit of slickness on the day. Fair enough, there was only a point in it. People will say it should have been a lot more, and I get that. But you have to admire St. Thomas's resilience. They showed their battling qualities. They showed their never die attitude. But ultimately, Loughrea going back to back, 1 point victory, they'll take it all day long. I'm sure they're celebrating long and hard up there this week. But having never achieved that now for this group of players, and to be the first group of players from Loughrea, I think will mean an awful lot for this group. And I think it'll actually galvanise them. And I just hope now that they can progress on in the All-Ireland series and give it a good whack. There's a lot of loose talk this week about the Ulster teams and they're only playing Ulster and they might be getting into a final and that. I don't think that'll enter the Loughrea psyche, because I think you've a really experienced management team there. So I would be hoping whoever comes out, whether it is Schlockneil, Portaferry, the Antrim champions, whoever they're doing, they do it in a professional manner. And if they get over that stage, then they get to a final and then work on that, because I think for the next stage, for development for this particular group, wouldn't it be a lovely way to say you were back-to-back county champions and you also won the All-Ireland Club? Because I think if you ask anyone last year, they were probably the most unluckiest group after losing to the eventual All-Ireland champions Na Fianna last year, you know. So I think it's a huge achievement for the players, huge achievement for a lot of lads that had soldiered for years. I'm thinking of Paul Hooban and Johnny Cohn there. Like, those guys have soldiered for years, had been there in the real dark times when things weren't going well, they were losing county finals. And for them to say now they're back-to-back winners, like, that's massive, you know, and just massive congratulations to them as a group. And they seem really united. Like, everyone you listen to at the weekend, any interviews on any media, they were all on about the panel and the group and the unity. And as I go back to a few weeks ago after Craughwell, were people questioning Loughrea? Maybe I was a little bit myself, but they came back and they showed why they're county champions. They've beaten Clarendon Bridge, they've beaten Turlough and they've beaten St. Thomas's. Like, I don't think you can ask any more of any team to do back-to-back. So I would say, as they're looking into their points this week, I'd say there's huge satisfaction in the way that they've actually won this and gone back-to-back, considering the calibre of the teams and the clubs they've beaten.
It's something I wanted to touch on, David. To win a county title and to take Clarenbridge, Turlough and Thomas's out on your way to winning a county title is just something else.
Yeah. Well, let's face it, lads. It's probably they probably knocked out the three best teams after themselves in succession in knockout games, with no backdoor. They did it in difficult enough conditions too. Found themselves, what were they, 7 points down against Clarendon Bridge at one stage. They're playing a really good Turlough team in the stadium in awful conditions, and then they're playing Thomas's. You know what I mean? The serial county finalist winners, in a final in awful conditions, which a lot of people would have said would have suited Thomas's as well. Bet them, no, it's probably one of the really, really top county titles won. They might have laboured a little bit in the groups, as I think Gerry mentioned. We might have said that exactly, but they mightn't have been hitting top gear. And I was kind of wondering, are they kind of maybe peaking, hoping to peak a little bit later this year? And maybe it is. Now, Tommy Kelly's made no reference to that whatsoever, so I don't know. But they did this year. Maybe they approached it with the sense of, look, we'll do enough to get out of this group. They probably fancied themselves. They knew by most likely they were going to emerge, and maybe they just got caught against Craughwell in the final group game. They could have no complaints that evening. I was at it myself. Craughwell were full value for the victory, but maybe it was the perfect time to get that little kick up the rear end for them as well, refocus the minds, and heading in, then they had a chance to kind of settle things in a preliminary quarter final. They did that. And they, when someone needed to stand up then against Clarendon Bridge, they did it in terms of Tiernan. Fully deserved county title. And there's probably, Paul, you mentioned as well, it's some county title. It's probably a huge satisfaction in the path that they took. Like, nobody could ever question, this success. Nobody could ever say, look, you had a soft run to it, but maybe if Thomas's did get over the line this year, maybe there was an element of that you could say, look, Thomas's probably have had tougher runs to get to a county final than they had this year. Whereas from a Loughrea point of view, they had to beat the best to be the best, and they definitely are the best this year.
Gerry, even from a coaching point of view, coming away from Saturday evening, I was just thinking, Loughrea's use of the ball and the way they were able to get the ball into pockets in those conditions, it was unbelievable the way, I suppose, the use of the ball, the diagonal balls and everything, because the conditions we had on Saturday evening, it was not an easy thing to do.
No, but to be fair, Paul, because they're so used to that system they play, nearly the weather the last day was nearly ideal conditions for them, because they knew what they were doing with the ball and it was up for Thomas's to figure it out. And the fact that ball was sliding and going that bit quicker, but you had the Loughrea guys ready for that. So like when I referenced in the first, I think it was in the first 2 or 3 minutes, one of them diagonal balls you mentioned, Paul, came in into Anthony Burns, and he just went one hand, caught it, just turned a little shimmy and was over the bar. They were just ready for that, and it just all flowed for them. And going back to just a point there that David made about Loughrea in time, like Paul Hoban wasn't really seen in the group stages. Darren Shaughnessy wasn't seen in the group stages. And for me, Joseph Mooney went from wing forward last year, really good, to wing back. So I think if you take the two lads missing and Joseph just bedding in, it probably took them a little bit of a while. But you'll notice that when the games had to be won, Paul Hoban appeared fairly quickly when you came for the Clareton Bridge game, because I felt he went in. Shane Morgan got injured against Crowell, and Paul Hoban went in centre back, and I thought he had a really good game. That was the first kind of game I seen him really playing. He had a really good game at 6, and then he went back when Shane came back. And then Darren Shaughnessy, to me, he kind of appeared really against Mike Cullen. That was kind of his first kind of appearance as such with them. He might have come on little bits and pieces, but that was the first game he started, and he kind of motored. And again, their system, and they just know how to play it. They know where lads are running. And again, I suppose there was lots of talk about St. Thomas's winning this going in, but I suppose the difference for Thomas's this time is they weren't the county champions going in. And I think maybe people kind of maybe took Loughrea for granted. I think winning the county championship last year gave Loughrea massive confidence in this group. And I'd say in that dressing room on Saturday, pre-game, they were saying, lads, we are the champions. We just need to go out and do what we do best to retain our championship. And there was obviously that, because they really went at it. And as I said, they let the ball go. The skill level was really high. And even from Thomas's, the skill level was higher. But I think if you look back over it, just the touch, the movement, and the space, like I felt Tiernan was dragging Shane out an awful lot to the wing. The ball was going the other side in, and Tiernan was sweeping back in again. And they just got their matchups really right. They, especially in the backs, on the lads they did against Thomas's. You know, they negated Éanna Burke didn't score, which in fairness he'd been on fire this year. Darren Farrell had a really good game. Victor Manzo only had 1 point in the second half. So they really got the matchups right there. But I have to compliment Darren Farrell. I thought he played really well. But the way that they used the ball, Loughrea, there was no panic coming out at all. It was heads up hurling, and it went through the line. And if it couldn't go through the first line, it went long diagonally where possible into space. And in fairness, when you have the likes of Vince Morgan coming onto a ball, first final, coming in fresh, 3 points in the first half, like he was on fire. You'd Anthony Burns the other side. I'd say the full back line for Thomas's, their heads was spinning a little bit, because the ball coming into them was really, really good. So wet conditions, definitely, once you know what you're doing with the ball, I think the wet conditions aids you. Not so good as a corner back if there's a guy out in front and he's getting that touch.
Yeah, I even thought at half time, David, when Loughrea led 11-6, Darren Shaughnessy had a goal chance in the first half. Shane Morgan missed a couple of frees, then gets the free on the stroke at half time. But you were sort of wondering, even Loughrea ahead 11-6, and even with their conversion rate, they were going for a lot of goals as well in the first half, that you were sort of wondering, did they need to be further ahead?
Indeed, but I'd rather be creating the chances, Paul, all the same. But they were looking awful dangerous. I think so it was it 18, 19 shots to 8 or something. And I know Thomas had an excellent conversion rate. I think it was 70 or 80%. My maths aren't great, lads. You might help me out there. Whereas Loughrea, Loughrea left a lot behind them. But I'd rather be creating the chances, Paul, and they were creating an awful lot. I just felt that, like Gerry touched on it there, their use of position and coming out with it. But on the flip side, I think Thomas has left far too much space in front of their full back line, and the likes of Keane, Fenton, and John Head probably won't be thanking the lines ahead of them in the sprints, because when they knew they were playing against the wind, I thought it was maybe a bit foolish to kind of push so high up on the puck outs. Thought they needed to drop back And I thought they probably needed to free up Shane Cooney to provide a little bit more space. Whereas Shane, as Gerry mentioned already, he's caught between a rock and a hard place and trying to follow Tiernan, who, as we saw what he did against Clare Bridge, he'll destroy you if he gets in space and trying to protect his full back line. And I ended up kind of being caught between two rocks, two stones, really, like, and not. He wasn't covered, and he probably wasn't doing himself enough justice in terms of marking as well. I thought maybe, like, when they knew they were against the wind and it was such a heavy wind, like they had a template there from when they played Ballygunner before, in the All Ireland semi final, where at that stage it was Damien Finnerty to drop back to Mark Pádraig Mahoney there at centre forward, and Shane Cooney was allowed cover in front of Patrick Fitzgerald and Desi Hutchison and Kevin Mahoney. I thought, like, after maybe it was okay, right, we'll start with it, but maybe that would be something that they probably might have needed to adjust on the line, being perfectly honest. And, like, it's very easy for me to say that in hindsight, but they needed to clog up the middle. They needed to cut out the space in front of the full back line and just kind of give themselves the chance. In terms of, back to your question, I suppose, like, from a Thomas's point of view, given how the amount of chances Loughrea had in the first half, you would have been absolutely delighted for the gap to be that little at half time. Being honest with you, given all the chances that Loughrea spurned and missed, they realistically they could have been out of sight. And I suppose another point would have been the fact that I don't think Thomas has had to chase the game all year, in the sense that, like, they were ahead against Tommy Larkins, they were ahead against Afton Rye, they're ahead against Gort, they're ahead against Mike Cullen. Like, they haven't had to chase the game, so it was probably a bit of, like, they've done it.
Consider the two Pats, like, now there's a fair difference in it, like.
There is, of course, absolutely, and I don't think anyone, even from out our neck of the woods, would say we had anywhere close to the level of road testing that Loughrea had. And I suppose maybe that comes back in hindsight. It's easy to say, you know what I mean, but, like, it probably was, and Loughrea were more battle hardened and road tested in the end.
I know we mentioned him earlier on, but Darren Farrell was immense Saturday night. Even at the start of the second half, the way he won those two frees and Thomas's get it back to 11-8 straight away.
Yeah, he was excellent, to be fair, and he had Johnny Cohn. Johnny mightn't like me for saying this now, but he had Johnny Cohn and all sort of bother early on, especially in the second half. But I will say, as the half went on, Johnny, in typical Johnny fashion, got on top of him again, and probably in the second half overall won that battle and closed it down. And when they couldn't breach really for the goal, I think Thomas's needed a goal that little bit earlier, and the Loughrea engine room, as in Ian Hanrahan and Cullen Killeen, they were up and down that field all day, and they really were negating. And even when Darren was playing well, Loughrea were kind of cute. They were trying to drop a guy back to help. Now, they put him into full forward, and I thought he did well there on Johnny, and they moved, but they weren't getting enough out of the other forwards, I think it's fair to say, because Victor has been really good all year. He was held to a point. Aina was held scoreless. And I think, now I could be open to correction, but I think he scored in every round that he played in this year, Aina, and he was coming off with 4 and 5 points from playing all that. So I think that the tactical battle there, I think, was won hands down by the Loughrea management. But you wouldn't really be surprised by that either, because they're an experienced management team. They're a county championship winning management team themselves. And they just had obviously looked at Thomas's in great detail. No doubt Thomas's had looked at Loughrea in great detail as well. But I just think that the Loughrea sideline won that battle. But Darren Farrell, to give him, and back to your question, to be fair to him, I think he was, outside of Conor Cooney, he was their best player on the day, to be fair, and maybe hadn't got enough credit in other rounds, but it played really well there, so well done to him.
I was even just thinking back as well, David, the Loughrea's game management, obviously, before the goal goes in and Conor gets the goal back, but the way they were able to make it 13-8, 14-10, 15-11, they were always able to hit Thomas's back.
Yeah, and it won't stand up. It's the experience, Paul. Once they looked like they knew what to do in the situation, they knew at halftime they'd built a lead, right? And they said, look, we're going to slow this down on every opportunity. And rightly so, when you're against the wind. They're like, there was a few more lads going down, taking a little bit longer than they normally would to get back up. I think there was a bit of a melee on there that, like, and it stopped. Thomas had just begun to build a little bit of momentum. I think that they hit 2 points in a row and they were back. I think it was back to 3, if I'm right in saying. And then a little bit of a row broke out, and Loughrea seemed to respond the better bit for it. I thought their game management was excellent, being perfectly honest. But I thought, there was a level of maturity in the performance that that Thomas's would have shown down through the years that Loughrea brought to the table this time round. And that comes from playing in county finals, winning county finals, even their game in the All-Ireland series last year against Nafina. I'm sure they would have learned a lot from that as well. Difficult time of year, you know what I mean? You have to play essentially almost two different type of game plans with the wind and against it. And I thought they did that super. And even towards for finish, they were, you know what I mean? Like when they got the 5-point lead late on, or 4-point lead, was 4-5 after Darren Shaughnessy scored the goal. They were just happy to play for territory and get it out over the sideline and waste a bit of time. Now I know Thompsons were a little bit aggrieved at full time over Liam Gordon's timekeeping, and I suppose I can kind of almost I suppose it's probably a little bit biased to me as well, that I can almost agree to a point, because there was only 25 seconds over the 5 minutes played, and there'd been 3 substitutes in injury time as well. So maybe there was time for a little bit more play. Now that's to take absolutely nothing away from Loughrea whatsoever. They were the better team by a mile. They deserved to win and everything like that. But I suppose just when Thomas had it back to a point, I thought we had one more chance for kind of a grandstand finish. And maybe the Thomas's man in me would be saying, look, go on, Liam, give us a couple more seconds after the 3 substitutions. But it wasn't to be. And Thomas left us with too much to do anyway, and they couldn't be blaming the official in the end for that when the time was up and he did elect to blow the whistle.
Gerry, Darren Shaughnessy's goal is something else under pressure and the way he's able to finish it off. But then Conor Cooney's free is something else as well.
Yeah, like, to be fair, if you're looking for a grandstand finish to Anton, you want action. And for me, the 2 snippets there are just magical to finish a county final. Wet conditions, under lights, everything going on, fans from both sides baying for blood. Maybe not happy with the ref, although to be fair, I think it was a difficult enough game to ref. I'd say Liam had an easier time in the All-Ireland hurling final this year than he had, because there was a lot going on. But in fairness, it wasn't insane that there wasn't too many off the ball nasty stuff going on, to be fair. It wasn't that. But like when Darren Shaughnessy got that ball, lads, he had an awful lot to do. It's not like he was in front of goal and he just turned and he tapped it. Like, he had an awful lot to do. But the one thing, and I suppose I use the term assassin with Loughrea up front in that full forward line. They were like, he really felt he was going for goal in his mind. When the ball was coming to him, he is back to goal, because he turned straight away. And in fairness, Keane tried his best to put him off with the hurl. And in fairness to Keane, he put a man coming from his right hand to keep the eye, keep the composure in a county final in the last minute of play. Unbelievable finish. Puts you 5 up. Loughrea sideline are doing a jig. Nigel Murray was dancing for joy on the sideline. They were 5 up. And then to give credit to Thomas's, Thomas's do what Thomas's do, and they clawed that back. But that free from Conor Cooney, what a belt of a ball. Like, but you wouldn't want any other man standing over a ball in that situation. Like, in the county, he is an unbelievable belt of a ball. And like, it was in the net before Loughrea seen it. Fair enough, there were only a point in it then. The ball went out, blown up. So you're always going to have, God, should he have given it? Should he not? Should he have let it go and all that? I suppose the time was up, in fairness to Liam, and he blew it. And obviously, as the losing team, you'll always feel aggrieved. But I think overall, anyone that was watching, anyone I've talked to this week, I think people would say that Loughrea were worthy winners, worthy county champions. And while there was a point in it, most of the people I thought that there was definitely a game that there were 5 and 6 points maybe better on the evening. Conversion rate let them down. If you think Shane Morgan, he probably missed 2 long range free. He got 2, to be fair to him, but he missed 2.
And in the post as well. That goal chance, forgot to mention it.
He hits the post,
big chance.
Yeah. And in fairness to Loughrea, they hit the post, they hit the crossbar, as well. And like up to that goal, I didn't feel Thomases were threatening for goal, and probably to beat Loughrea, they probably needed that goal to get back in early on. But to give them their dues, the start of the second half, Paul and David, when they came out, Thomases, they really went at it now. To give them, like, they knew their backs were to the wall, they threw everything at it and they went at Loughrea. But again, as David alluded to earlier, the game management of Loughrea, there was no panic. Loughrea, maybe last year or the year before, there might have been a little bit of panic set in, but not this Loughrea team. And I think as well, lads, I think there's a little bit of worry here for other people in the county as well. Loughrea are a youngish enough team, and if you take this year the under-20s, they got beaten after replaying the county final. But if they managed to pull 2 or 3 out, and I see Luke McInerney there, and I see Gavin Maher, names like that they can bring on to that squad next year. And then if you look at their minors this year, they lost to the eventual county champions or more after extra time, and they were without their best player in that. So Loughrea have serious young talent coming. So I think Loughrea, we're talking about them back to back, but you'd have to say, I'd say Loughrea will be setting their sights on going for 3 in a row next year. They mightn't thank me for saying that, but I would say now they'll be an ambitious group. They'll obviously go for the All-Ireland club and then next year, but they'll be firm favourites now starting out at this stage for going for 3 in a row in my book, because I'm just looking at what's coming down, what I'm seeing coming through academies at either minor or Celtic Challenge that play for Loughrea, and there's some really good talent coming up along, and you know they have the bench there as well. Some lads they didn't even use. Alan Kelly came on, played really well. Sean Sweeney had been used and they didn't bring him on the last day. So like they have really good players coming on. So yeah, but the 2 boys, the shots they took, like it's to grace any county final. So it was a privilege to be there to watch that, you know, to be fair.
I was only thinking as well, David, with the back 6 Loughrea have at the moment of Paul Hubban, Johnny Cohn, Kieran Hanrahan, Shane Morgan, Joe Mooney, Brian Carey. Obviously very hard to break down when you consider the 6 backs they have, but Kieran Hanrahan as well, probably one of the players of the championship, and putting them on Conor Cooney, like the management, in fairness to Loughrea, got a lot right at the back.
So I think they got a lot right all over the field, Paul. As Gerry mentioned earlier, I think they, as he said, they definitely won the tactical battle hands down. I don't think any of us saw Kieran Hanrahan going on Conor Cooney. I think the matchup everyone assumed was going to happen was Kieran Hanrahan would go on Victor Manson. Thought like he was in form. It just seemed to be the way. But Loughrea rolled the dice. It was a gamble. There's no point in saying otherwise. You think Kieran Hanrahan is giving up a little bit of size to Conor Cooney, but he does have the heart of a lion, as we've seen all through the championship this year. He arguably, there's a strong case for him being the player of the championship this year. I think he's very much in the contention. He's definitely in the top 1, 2, 3 of that. I don't think I've seen him in trouble in any game, even against Clare Bridge when he was on Iron Island. He stuffed him out of it entirely in the second half, and he hurled an awful lot of ball that day as well at the same time. So they're back like it's a perfect blend. You kind of, if you go through their back 6, you have the experience of, say, your Paul Hubban and your Johnny Cohen. You keep Kieran for most part slotting in beside them there, as well as a bit of a ball playing cornerback. Then you have Brian and Joe Mooney, who are probably 2 converted forwards, but such is the modern game. You need to be able to hurl from back there. You need to be able to play a bit of ball. And Shane Morgan has had an excellent year centre back, I thought. And they're just so good at protecting themselves as well. I think Ian Hanrahan must be the, like I say a few times with a few players, must be the most underrated hurler in Galway over the last years. He's been brilliant. Like, you know, I texted a few lads afterwards just to kind of confirm his age, and somebody told me I think he's 30 or 31. I was thinking, wouldn't he not be worth the run now with Galway? Given, you know, just to see, but maybe he has no interest or whatever. They're and look, one person that probably kind of goes a lot under the radar there as well is Garrett Lucknan in goals. I think he's he's really kind of solidified the position, and he's great range in his puck outs, both short and long. And he's well able to slow the game down when it's needed, and well able to speed it up when it's needed as well. They're a formidable outfit, Paul. Like, you know, and that back six is incredible. Like, and they've as
The way Cayman Killeen gets back on loose ball too, I think, has gone under the radar. Even Saturday night, I thought he was excellent at it.
he's brilliant. He's brilliant, and he keeps, you know, and he's an extra layer of cover for that defense there, and he's such a selfless player. Like Cayman Killeen, you know, he's mostly probably going to finish with his 2 or 3 points. He's never going to get, you know, the 5, 6 that some of the other forwards are going to. But the work that he does there in that half forward line is absolutely incredible. It's, you know, in tough conditions. It was the same against Thurlock as well, and I'm sure, Gerry, you remember that game as well. I thought he was absolutely brilliant in that day as well. The work rate out of him around that middle third, which is an absolute war zone in those conditions. And he's putting his body on the line, he's putting a leg in, he's putting his hand in, he's getting hooks, he's getting blocks, he's getting tackles, he's really working for the team. And he's personifies probably that Loughrea team and kind of what Tommy Kelly would be looking for. Like if you were saying, I want everyone on that team to play like one player, I'd want them all to play like Cayman Killeen in terms of attitude, work rate, you know, selflessness for the team. Like, fantastic performance, Paul. And he's a credit to himself and credit to Loughrea. He's probably out of the 3 Killeens, he probably gets the headlines the least, but he does an awful lot of unseen work.
In fairness, I must give mention to Sean Walsh from Galway FM. I'd say he must have got 13 or 14 Loughrea players. It's the most I've seen anyone get that amount of players anyways after a county final. But I was listening to him, Gerry, and it was really interesting listening to Shane Morgan. He was talking about last year, maybe when they were covering back against Nafina, that they were nearly roaring at lads to get back. But he said we've really worked on the communication side of things, and he said he knew when he wasn't there that someone else would be there. I think that shows a lot about the progression as well.
It does, and I think that goes with a little bit of experience, and it goes, I think, as well with winning a county championship. Just gives you that little bit of, you know-how, and no doubt. No doubt, even winning the county championship last year, I'm sure Loughrea weren't happy with their county final performance last year. I'm sure when they look back with Nafina, which is a game they'll probably think they should have won, there was probably something there. And if Shane as Shane rightly did, he referenced the communication. But I think, and in fairness to David there, he mentioned that the work rate at the half hour line. I think the middle eight for Loughrea really play as a unit. Like, for me, they're very in sync, so they are. So if the half back line drop back, the midfielder dropping and the half forward line pulled out, and you'll have seen the last day, all the space in front of that full forward line, whether it was a 2 or a 3, depending on the situation. And I suppose communication is key, and especially even on I'd say playing under lights is different atmosphere. Like, you've only got the stand as opposed to both sides of the field if you were in Athenry or in Loughrea or you're in Ballinasloe. So it's even a different atmosphere, but you can actually nearly hear the players shouting. At one stage, Garrosh didn't give a ball, and there was a 2v1 over on his right-hand side as he hit it out, and he went left. And Tiernan gave him a good kind of a, let's say, niceties. How come it didn't come down this side? Because they were on. So they've obviously worked on their communication. They knew where they were going. And I just feel the middle eight worked really well as a unit. And if you have your middle eight, and like Jamie Ryan, he plays at wing forward, but like Jamie could pop up anywhere, no more than Cayman on the far side. Like, Jamie's up and down that, and like, he must be a nightmare to mark. You know, any team, you really have to put a man marker on Jamie. But if you put a man marker on Jamie and Jamie roams and the marker goes with him, look at all the space he's creating. So it is all done deliberately. So Loughrea don't do anything tactically just for the sake of doing it. And all the players know exactly what you're doing. And that comes with Tommy Kelly being there, the manager, the continuity over the last few years. He has to be complimented as well, because he could easily have walked away when things weren't going well for them, but he stuck with them. And like you could see afterwards, the genuine all the players that spoke to Sean and that they have for Tommy Kelly. Like, even he referenced Ian, he named all the management, and then he said the man that pulls it all together. So it really showed what they think of Tommy Kelly. So, you know, I think for him, huge congratulations, because him and his management team, and he's the leader of the ship at the end.
think we might have lost you there, Gerry. Yeah, but even it,
the day. But like when you've coaches like Gavin Kearney and coaches like Gavin is going in as the Galway under-20 manager, driving the standards, and then you have.
can you hear me now, Gerry?
Yeah, can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, lost you there. But even if you take it back to 22, obviously the draw, and then they lost the
yeah,
semi-final to Turlock in 23. Like it hasn't all been
yeah.
plain sailing, and would have been an easy time
No.
to, do you know?
Oh, definitely after we beat them in 23. I'm sure there was a bit of soul searching done by Tommy Kelly and the management team. But in fairness to them, they waited there, believed in the project, made a few tweaks, and now they have the reward. So I think there's a lesson there as well for clubs. Sometimes it's very easy to change for the sake of change. You know, Loughrea didn't in 23, and now they're back-to-back county champions. So I think often there's a lesson. Sometimes teams just change and they think we need to change and we need to get an outside person. We need to get to who do we change and who's the best person in the club or the outside the club. But I think Loughrea are a kind of a model and a template there that they didn't. They stuck with Tommy and now they have their just rewards, you know, and hopefully they'll go on and that they have another title to get before the end of the year, you know.
Yeah, so in an All-Ireland semi-final now against the Ulster champions, which will be either Slaughtneil, Portaferry, St. John's or Setanta that they'll be playing the semi-finals of the Ulster Championship yet to take place. David, it's obviously quite a break now for them until they play that All-Ireland semi-final in December. But I think we've referenced all the players, maybe some players who didn't feature at the weekend, and then obviously you look at the subs that they brought in too. A nice position for Tommy Kelly now in the management to be in to focus the minds and drive the competition even further in this squad.
Absolutely, Paul. It's a huge opportunity, and like I agree fully with Gerry what he mentioned earlier when he was kind of discussing the northern teams. And the worst thing they could do would be to take any of these teams for granted because it's going to come in a real battle at a real tough time of year. They're going to be facing a northern team. We're probably going to want to run the ball, run it down their throats, and they need to be ready for that. Be it in Newry, be it in Parnell Park, wherever the centre ground is that they're going to play them. It's a huge opportunity to, and I do think the fact that they experienced last year will stand to them. I do think that they'll have seen kind of what it's about. Your referee, maybe you're refereed a bit different in Galway than you are outside the county. Maybe it's a case that you're just seeing the different styles of hurling. Like Galway is a particular style. I know they all have different styles in Galway, but you're playing in different pitches that you mightn't have played on before. You're playing in front of different crowds. And you're playing in an Ireland semi-final. Like, and just to touch on kind of some of the points that Gerry made there regarding Tommy Kelly, like he just seems to be a complete players man, as in all the players absolutely love him and they really appreciate the effort he puts in. And he's a Loughrea man out and out, as he referenced Sean's interview there afterwards. He was on about the GA being founded in Loughrea straight away afterwards. Then he would reference back a county final that they never got a chance to play in the 1900s and all this. Like a Loughrea man through and through, and that's worth its weight in gold. As like sometimes there is the kind of how would I describe it? There's people are rushing to appoint outside managers to come in. Sometimes the local fella that you have, that knows everyone, that knows their families, that knows the personalities of the players, and seeing them growing up can be worth its weight in gold. And I think someone like Tommy, and like that's completely underestimating the level of tactical detail, preparation, and hurling now that Tommy and his management team have at the same time. I do think from like heading in an All Ireland semi final, should be a lot of hurt from last year. Like they probably didn't do it themselves. They missed a lot in the All Ireland semi final, and then like I don't know if you remember back, there was a team of the championship pick last year, and there wasn't a single Loughrea player on it. There was three from the crowd from Cork. I think there was one from Ballygunner and Waterford who didn't even win Munster, and there wasn't a Loughrea player reference. And I know they don't have a Connacht championship, but they were the closest team to the All Ireland champions. And I thought it was completely wrong. I actually thought it was a thunder disgrace if there wasn't a Loughrea player reference of that. And if I was saying, look at what if I was going in, I'm sure Tommy wouldn't reference this, but I'd be saying, no, but they don't show us enough respect. So let's go out and show them this year. and let's make them pickers on this team, and let's you know, and like I know it's not the end of the world. It's the Tommy Moore Cup that they'll want to win, but at the end of the day, this is all stars for club players. Some of these lads won't ever have an opportunity of winning an all star for their county. So I think, you know, there should be coming with plenty of motivation, plenty of experience, and I think it's an opportunity. They should look at it as a real opportunity here now. There's some good teams left. They shouldn't be underestimating anyone. Know about that plenty yourselves and Thomas's at the same time. You know, never to underestimate anyone coming down the tracks in an All-Ireland series, because they're provincial winners at the end of the day after winning their county title. They're used to winning games. But I think Loughrea, the experience that they have across the board with Tommy steering the ship, and the just the experience they have in their player pool as well, I think it's really going to stand to them. And hopefully they give it a real rattle, because after, you know, we go to war in Galway, but afterwards, you know, no matter what club team comes out, you want to see them do well, be it Portumna down to the years, be it Athenry, be it Sarsfields, be it whoever one comes out. We want to see them do well, and hopefully Loughrea now can go on and do it from here.
David, just as I mentioned, your own lads, Thomas, is winning the Junior A this year. I think everyone knows that you aren't gone anywhere and you'll be back contending yet. Next year, especially, even if you consider Oisín Flannery be back on the pitch next year, hopefully after it's cruciate, and still plenty of young lads coming through the club.
Absolutely, Paul. And look, if that group of players never won another game for Thomas's, they owe the whole parish absolutely nothing. Like, they're, you know, I couldn't praise that group of players enough for what they've done for our parish and what they've done for our club. Because, you know, when I was growing up, we were intermediate. We were mostly competing in B championships, winning nothing. Like, I went to school in Gort and be like, "Where are you from?" And you're from Thomas's. Sure, what would you know about hurling? Like, what would you know? You know, you'd be getting it from the Gort lads there, Drahan lads, or whatever. Like, so like, what they've done for young people in our parish and generations coming down the tracks has been unbelievable. Like, you're looking at some of the finest players that are ever going to wear the Thomas's jersey, and it's been a privilege to follow them. As I said, I hope there's a few more victories in them and a few more great days. But if they didn't, if this was the end of the road and nothing, they ever got their hands on Tom Callan Cup again, you couldn't be prouder, you couldn't be happier of what they've achieved. And you know what I mean? As I would say, if I was to meet them all, I would thank them for their service to the club and their service for what they've done for Galway Club Championship in the All-Ireland series at the same time. It's been a privilege to watch them, been a privilege to, you know, see, you know, how they're never beaten, how they're, you know, they always go to the well, they give you 100%. If it's not their day, they generally take it on the chin. By and large, some days maybe they'll be worse than others, I'm sure. But yeah, look, I couldn't praise them enough. And please God, there's more good days. But look, they've been fantastic ambassadors for the club, and thank them all.
Gerry, you expect Loughrea to give this All-Ireland Championship a rattle now?
Absolutely, yeah. No, listen, winning their second county title in a row now, I think is going to give them massive confidence. I think they're going in. There'll be a fresh approach now. I'm sure, like they referenced numerous times, be it the captain, be it Tommy, that they have a panel of 36, 37 players. They're probably lucky within Galway that they have two Fitzgibbon teams in the University of Galway and ATU. I'm sure they'll be called on now for challenge high. I'd say internal games now over the next couple of weeks will be, because there's a few lads there that were starting that maybe haven't got a start in a while. So I'd say competition for places are going. So if you were a player now, I'm sure you're celebrating. You'll celebrate this week. And they'll enjoy it, and they deserve to enjoy that. But I would say Tommy Kelly and that management team won't be long getting them back down to earth again and saying, lads, listen, this phase of championship is over now. We've done what we wanted in Galway. Could we really have a crack now? And I've no doubt they'll set their target now on. They have 2 games to win an All-Ireland club. So when you say that, it's 2 games that you really got to prepare for. They win a semi-final against an Ulster team that won't be easy, but they get over that, then they're in the All-Ireland final. And if they're in the final, anything can happen. Depends who gets there against them. So I would give them a great chance. But again, they need to prepare in the right way. But Like, we just got to look at when things didn't go well for them against Crowell, and I'll reference it again because Crowell deservedly beat them. But when it didn't go well, they circled the wagons and they were able to do it. So I've no doubt now in the next week, Tommy and the management will sit these guys down and probably refresh the target now. We've ticked the county 2 in a row. Do we want to go as a group now? I'd say with the leaders in there, like, don't tell me that Paul Hooban, Johnny Cohn, these lads wouldn't want an All-Ireland club medal with Loughrea. Like Garros Lucknan, Darren Shaughnessy, Tiernan Killeen, Ian Hanrahan. Don't tell me that they wouldn't like an All-Ireland club medal in their back pocket. What a year, have a county medal and get the club, because they've been watching, to be fair to Thomas's and David references their ambassadors. The one thing about Thomas's is when they left the county, they really played well, and they brought the cup home on a number of occasions. And I'd say Loughrea are saying now, we're after beating Thomas's. Can we do now what they have done? So I think it's something they haven't achieved. So wouldn't it be fantastic to think they could go and achieve it and definitely get further than they got last year? So I wish them the best of luck. I wish the management team and the players the best of luck. And hopefully, I think, if I'm honest, I think it'd be a shot in the arm for Galway hurling if Loughrea could go out and win. I think it might be the lift maybe we need a little bit going into the inter-county season when they start back at it. I think it'd be fantastic if you had a Loughrea team flying high.
And who's your senior hurler of the championship? For me, it's Kieran Hanrahan. I think he's been in cornerback since the start of the championship, and as we mentioned, the jobs he's done on different players, I think he's the hurler of the championship. Who is it for you, David?
Harkins is a great, Paul. I would plump for Kieran Hanrahan as well, and I hope after a long club season, his phone will be ringing afterwards for Galway as well, because I'd love to see him get a run after what he's delivered this year. I know he was dropped last year at a point, so it'd be great to see him, maybe doing something similar to some of the lads that came in last year. And I think on the base of his club form, he's definitely worth a look for Galway.
And who is it for you, Gerry?
Yeah, it's a Hanrahan, but it's not Kieran. I've gone for Ian. I think
Okay.
Ian has been fantastic in the middle of the field, and I suppose I love his leadership qualities, and I love when the game isn't going well that he can grab it by the scruff of the neck, and like he epitomizes everything for me. In the middle eight of that team, he drives it. Kieran definitely is a close second for me, but I would plump for Ian as a captain, as a leader, and the respect, just seeing the respect those players have for him. I think he was brilliant last year as well, and probably didn't get all the due recognition, but I would go with Ian Hanrahan. Same surname, but just a different first name.
Just before we move on to the intermediate final and then talk about Ballinasloe's win, obviously club championship over now. Fixtures came out yesterday for the Leinster Championship and Galway's fixture list. If you're looking at the club championship, David, in an overall context, who do you think has earned the call in now into Micheál Donoghue's set up for 2026?
Few lads been called in already, Paul. I think I know it could be completely wrong there over the last week, but I think there was a few lads called in. I suppose you're looking at Loughrea first, aren't you? Really, and I suppose kind of there you're looking at Kieran Hanrahan back in. I suppose Colin Killeen I would be definitely taking a look at as well. Darren Shaughnessy for sure. I think it warrants a call up. Maybe Vince Morgan. I'm going down to the whole Ireland team, but they're county champions at the end of the day, and I think they're definitely worth the look. Down through it, I suppose, Paul. There's, it has been the players over the last few years that have kind of stood out at the same point. I think, I suppose, Kieran Lean is an obvious one. I know he's still in school, and I think he has been called in to the best of my knowledge as well. For this early stages, whatever that is worth, I think someone like him would definitely be worth it. Maybe his brother Tiernan as well would be certainly worth the look at the same time. Trying to go back through them all now, I suppose kind of the main ones that kind of stand out from towards the knockout stage. Oh, and probably Victor Manso probably is worth the look and go from Thomas's point of view. I know they've had a good few in there already, but it would be someone like that I would be potentially looking at as well. I just think 6-8 in a club championship for your club, I suppose, it probably is the type of form that you warrant a look for a few weeks at the very least and see how it goes for you.
Anyone else for you, Gerry, that do you feel has earned a call in?
I suppose I was impressed, but I don't know what he get called in. Is it Keane Daniels, or that he was number 6 for Tommy Larkins this year? I was really impressed with him. I thought he was a good moment.
Yeah.
Is he?
I think he has been.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
And like, he didn't get a goal last year and he was down to injured, and I suppose he's a club mind my own, Killian Trayers, but I think Killian Trayers has a good future in the Galway jersey. Touch wood that he stage injury free. I think he gets about his business in a no nonsense manner. He gets it quietly, but he's a really good hurler. And I think there'll probably be a few from Clarenbridge as well. The lads that were there last year, you'll probably have Sean Murphy and Aaron Ireland. They're a year older. I know Aaron come back after injury last year, probably. But again, I suppose I'm always a bit conscious or cautious with those younger lads. Even Kieran Ean, he's still in leaving cert. It's a big thing, even doing his leaving cert. Grade them or get them in at a phase and just getting them used to the training. And it is a big step up. It is a big step up from club into inter-county training. Even they've changed the S&C guide this year, and there's going to be new changes, new ideas, and that. So it is a big change. So for me, that's kind of just a few. But like, at the end of the day, they can only have so many. They have to scour the county for who they think they are. He is here, but ultimately it's going to come down to, I think, listen, we wish them the best for the season ahead, because the 19th of April in Pearse Stadium versus Kilkenny, that's going to be the big one for them, isn't it? So whatever happens in the league happens, but I think that'll be the focus, because if you've Loughrea involved here and they go on further, you'll have a few players there that'll be involved in that, so they mightn't get them. And a lot of them that we spoke about there, both David and I, they're also under 20, so a lot of them will be between the 20s and the senior as well. So just that they're working well together, and I'm sure the management will work well together to make sure that there's no issues there.
Obviously, Jason Flynn as well has announced his retirement in the last few weeks. So best wishes to him as well, and particularly for all the service he gave to Galway over the last number of years. Do you think this is the year, David, that we begin to see a changing of the guard, like in the squad, in an overall context?
I think so, Paul. Yeah, I just think we have to. I think we just have to, without being too ruthless or anything like that. I just think last year that was probably the finishing point for a few players. I think that we might potentially see a few more stepping away between now and the start of the intercounty season. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I would envisage it. I suppose generally few players have a rattle at the club championship, and then they make a call on whether they're going to go back for another year. I think it's probably time. Probably do think we need to see a fairly substantial change into the guard. That's not to say we still don't need our Dahi Burks or our leaders like that down through the field. But it's time now to it's time to really kind of focus on building a squad for the next 3 to 5 years that could potentially be competing for All Ireland honours and Liam McCarthy in maybe say 5 years' time with a realistic plan. It's time to kind of blood them. Maybe there might be a bit of short-term pain for long-term gain, but we experienced a bit of that last year anyway without blooding a whole pile. So this is, I think it's just kind of reached the crossroads. And Mihal and Franny and Aidan Hart and Noel Larkin, I think they're smart. They know that they probably realise that themselves. It's just a point, and it's nothing against the lads that have been there. Down through the years, have given enormous service to Galway, but it's just kind of it is a young man's game. You need a lot of legs. You need a lot of time as well to give up. It's a huge commitment, and it's probably kind of something that younger fellas that can do. And I think we can draw a lot of inspiration from Tipperary last year at the same point. They faced something very, very similar to us. People were writing them off, saying they're going absolutely nowhere. And then, Cahill molded the team. I think he took things very much under his own control last year and said he was going to do things the way he was. Maybe Galway management are going to be a little bit more selfish this year in terms of, making their availability for 20 games or whatever. Maybe there's a bit of politics that might need to happen with that as well at the same time. But I do think it's one that we really need to go after now, and I do think we need to go after a good league campaign as well. I know Gerry referenced the Kilkenny game has been a massive game, but I do think we need to kind of build a bit of momentum. I do. I don't. I think we need to be kind of going out winning and trying to win every game in the league and see where it takes us. Winning is a habit. Winning breeds success, and you can go from there. So that would be my view. And as I said, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing a new look to the Galway team. And seeing how that plays out. And I think it's important that we give them time to blood in between the players and the management if they are going to kind of go for a bit of an overhaul. That there's a bit of patience there, and that we kind of understand that there might be, as I already mentioned, a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain. Please God.
Just before we touch now on Meelick Eyrecourt win, it was something I was thinking about over the last few weeks, and maybe I'm way off at this point, but do we need to look at more intermediate and junior players across the club championship for the Galway senior hurling panel? Because if you look at it last year, it's only John Fleming and Conor Whelan. And the point I'd probably put it back to is if you look at Kilkenny as a county, for instance, there's always been intermediate and junior players representing them at adult level. Do you think it is a grade that we need to maybe place more emphasis on?
Yeah, I think, Paul, to be fair to the management, I do think they look at all levels. I don't think, like, for me, there's always a nugget in every team. There's always someone that you can have, and then you just got to see, can they go the next level. So I would imagine, to be fair, without knowing the panels or that, I would imagine that they have called in plenty of players to give them their due across intermediate and senior B. I've no doubt that they'll have players in there. And really, then it's the transition of whether they can make it. And that's up to every player. And I suppose just touching on what David said there, for me, for Galway, if you look at Cork and you look at Tip, for me, a really important grade is winning the under 20, be it Leinster or going after an All Ireland. And when we're trying to develop a senior winning squad with a mentality of winning, I think our under 20 grade, which we haven't really cracked that nugget over the last few years, if we're being honest. This is a really, really good under 20 squad. And I don't want to be putting any pressure or anything, and I wish Gavin Keary and his management the best to look with it. But it's a really, really good squad. And I would hope that we go after the under 20 Leinster this year and go after the All Ireland. Because if you look at Cork, who have won Munster and they won the league, and I know they haven't won the All Ireland yet, but think of the good under 20 teams they've had over the last few years. Look at Tip last year, they won the under 20. And then that brought the confidence. You had Sam O'Farrell, you had these guys coming through. So for me, I just hope that Galway also factor that in, that there's a little bit of linkage there between the 20s and senior management, and that there's enough that Gavin has enough to put his plans in place, and Micheál has enough to use who he needs, and that together they work together for the good of Galway hurling, which I've no doubt they will. But just that I would be really going after the 20s. But going back on whether the players are used, I don't think the lads would not, because you're from an intermediate club, and I'm sure they were there the weekend, or you're from a senior B club or a junior club. I don't think if you go back on the panel. So I think they cast their net far and wide, and I don't think, at the end of the day, I think if you ask the Galway management, they don't really care what colour jersey is on your back or what grade you're at once you're able to play for that Galway panel. I would imagine, because ultimately everyone wants to get the best panel together for the good of Galway hurling, and I can't see that management team's mentality being any different than that, knowing the men that's involved in it.
Yeah, so just for supporters who are unaware of the Leinster Championship fixtures, it's Galway Kilkenny, first in Pearse Stadium, 18th or 19th of April. Then Galway Offaly a week later, 25th and 26th of April in Pearse Stadium. Round three, then Galway will make the trip to Kildare to say Connells Park on the 9th or 10th of May, the first away game. Then it's Galway Dublin. So for the first year I think in a long while, Galway Dublin won't be the last game. It'll be in round 4 and it'll be in Pearse Stadium. And then the final day on the 23rd and 24th of May, Galway will travel to Wexford. And then if they're in the top two, they'll be in a Leinster Senior Hurling final on the 6th of June. So that's how the Leinster Championship is structured this year. Take a look then at the intermediate final. Meelick Eyrecourt 116, Kinvara 16 points. Meelick Eyrecourt, intermediate champions for 2025. David, they've been knocking at the door for years. They've been so consistent between semi-finals and finals, and even seeing the scenes on the pitch and the blue flares and everything, you couldn't be not delighted for Meelick Eyrecourt at the weekend.
It's fantastic, Paul. You know what I mean. It's such they're facing a lot of challenges out that side of the county as well in terms of rural depopulation, etc. And you know to see them, and they, as you mentioned already, they've been battling so hard over the last years. I think it was 1997 is the last one an intermediate title, so it was fantastic for them to get the chance to lift the Mixed Silver Cup. Thought they were. I just thought they were knocking on the door so many times. Had the opportunity gone, and then just next year with the restructuring, it was kind of, is it now or never? But it's fantastic scenes. I thought they were excellent the whole way through the game. I thought Niall Fleming was outstanding. Thought Conor Tracy did a brilliant job on Conor Whelan, we'll say. Up front then as well, Jarlath McAvoy, I think he finished with 1-2. Just think they were very, very solid down through the centre, and I thought they were quite really strong defensively. And that goal that they got just kind of set them in their way. And I know it was the difference in the end, and it's that old cliche goals win games, but it was a hugely important game, and they had been threatening for goals up to that point as well. They were over the course of the whole game, they were the better team, and I think they were full value for their win.
Yeah, the way Jarlath McAvoy stuck that goal in the first half, Gerry, excellent finish, wasn't it?
Excellent finish, yeah. No, he'd only one thing on his mind as well. When he got it, he was going for a goal and he finished it. And to be fair to Cathal Corliss, I felt Cathal Corliss was keeping Kinvara in it in the first half. Like, Meelick Eyrecourt had a few chances, half chances, and for me, Kinvara just didn't make enough use of the breeze in that first half. They played some good hurling, both kind of set up with a sweeper or a +1 back there, and it was typical county final day as it is. All the balls seemed to go into that player, so it looked like the lads weren't looking up and playing through the lines or moving the ball. But when Jarlath got it, and Jarlath was lively all day, he finished with 1-2 as David said, but he was lively all day and he was giving them bother there. And to be fair, Dara Burke was starting on him. He did as well as he could, but it's just that Eyrecourt seemed to want, and I suppose an antidote that I was told about it is that when the Mixed Silver Cup was presented initially in 1997, Meelick Eyrecourt were the winners, and on Sunday they changed the cup and it was a new Mixed Silver Cup, and Eyrecourt were the winners again. So I think the sponsor, the daughter, Mixed Silver's daughter, was telling the sponsor of Steel Tech, Leonie Finn, she presented the man of the match. She was telling her that little anecdote. So I think whatever it is, they like when the cup is new or it's changed. So for Eyrecourt, but they were full value for their win. Like they just bossed the whole thing all over, you have to say. They wanted it a bit more, and I suppose they just seem to want it and want the ruck ball, the dirty ball, that little bit more. And especially in the second half, even when Kinvara was coming back at them, again, their game management was good. And Niall Fleming really stood up for them. And sure, Nathan Erner, in fairness to him, was unerring from frees as well.
He's
and
really rediscovered his underage form, hasn't he, Nathan Erner, this year?
Yeah. Really, really good. Really, really good. I think it's 7 points he finished with. He finished with 7 points, 6 frees and one from play. But he was really busy all day. And it was just, when he went quiet, then Niall Fleming really came into it. You know what I mean? Like, he had 3 points in the second half. And when they wanted someone to stand up, he was there. And John was kind of sitting back a little bit then when James Downey was there. They just had a very good system. And they just, I suppose, the joy afterwards. And there was a great crowd there from Kinvara. Very unlucky in Kinvara, second final in a row to lose. And they'll probably have regrets when they woke up yesterday morning. I'd say they'll have lots of regrets of how they did it. Maybe from a management viewpoint, how was the approach to the game, and sometimes as well, when you're going into a second final, there can be a thing of, oh, we'll get this one, but it doesn't always happen like that. Unfortunately, you have to earn wins, and Eyrecourt just came with a bit more hunger, I think, on the day, and they're worthy county champions. I bet they don't get promoted, but at least they can go on now onto the kind of championship series, which is good for them.
I know, Gerry, when we were discussing Meelick Eyrecourt on the pod, we were sort of saying we were waiting for them to, I suppose, kick into gear. And in fairness, they have Carnmore, Ballygar, Kinvara, bet them all, and even like they've changed things up. Like James Downey used to be a key forward; he went back this year at 6, and even the 6 attackers the last day, like all chipping in with scores.
Yeah, no, they've all been impressive. They've restructured their team, to be fair, and I suppose that's the good thing. Restructure the team, and it's worked. Lots of management have restructured their teams, and we've seen that in different phases with different teams, and we'll have talked about earlier on the championship across all the grades. But when you restructure your team and it works out for you, that's fantastic as a management team. They were very strong up the middle, to be fair to them. And like, if you're strong up the middle at intermediate grade, and especially having a county senior player like John Fleming, who for me actually had a really good year for Galway this year. Like, he played really, really well for Galway in lots of games this year. And he was there in the middle of the park. So that gave them a little bit of confidence. So, like, you have to give your hats off to Eyrecourt, a well-deserved win in the end. And, like, they're all in Premier Intermediate next year. They'll all be in there again. And if Eyrecourt and Kinvara meet next year again, it'll be helter-skelter. So, like, it's all something to look forward to next year for the Premier Intermediate.
Yeah, David, it's obviously disappointing for Kinvara, like second final in a row, defeated, but at the same time, special mention must go to Dara Helbert, because thought he was outstanding from play and from place balls. He really kept Kinvara in this game.
Yeah, he brought his form from last year through, Paul, didn't he, as well? Because he was excellent last year as well. At the same time, he seemed to kind of he's gone to another gear over the last 2 years. Under his father and Mike Cummins and the rest of the management team there. I was hugely impressed with him. He's filled out quite a bit in size as well by the looks of things over the last year too. So definitely he's well able to ride challenges and things like that. Another one that kind of impressed me was Aidan O'Hanlon up front. I think he scored 3 points from play. Like, it's a really good contribution from a wing forward in the county final. They're young, Paul, though. They're still such a young team. Like, is there, like, outside Conor Whelan, is there anyone 30 or close to it? I don't
say Niall Birmingham's the only one. I'd
Niall
say.
Birmingham, yeah, exactly. So they're going to have chances again. Like, and and next year, I know there was no promotion anyway this year. So, like, next year you can kind of reset again. You're going to be competing against even better teams again next year, which makes it more of a challenge. But I think it'll bring them on. I think, they say you have to lose 1 to win 1, but, like, you can also lose 2 to win 1. Like, it just takes a bit of time. That hurt can be bottled up a lot. Like, you go down to their team there, like Dara Burke, like, Joshua O'Connor, like, kind of like Luca Danju, Porrick, Noel, Dara Helbert, and then sure you've Conor Whelan as well, kind of the spiritual leader of the team. At the same time, they're really good team, but, like, very, very good crop of players. And I know Gerry mentioned it, like, when he was discussing Loughrea, and I think it'd be very important for them to keep their management team together now again and go another year, go back at it again next year and tackle it, because, like, they're not a million miles away, and there's not a million miles between the teams that are going to be joining them in intermediate next year either. Like, like, there's not a huge gap between the very best teams in intermediate and the teams in senior B. So, like, I think it sets up nicely for a nice Premier Intermediate Championship next year. I think Kinvara, from the experience they've got over the last 2 years, they can take a lot from it and have a cut at it next year again.
Eyrecourt as well.
And they have a good young squad as well there, Paul. Just I suppose on that as well. Like, Kinvara have a good, like, Porrick Canole came up with 3 points the last day from play, and, like, in fairness to Dara Helbert, he had 3 from play, 4 from freeze. Like, they have some good, like, Michael Curtin came on as a sub, looked really, really lively. I know he was in through the academies before, and he's a really lively player. looking at results, and I suppose I'd be watching all clubs and all grades, but like Kinvara this year is under 21, like caused a few shocks in the under 21 championship. So they have good young players coming through, and like that, as David said there rightly, the age profile is really good as a club. So fair enough, they lost the weekend, but I think there's a lot to be positive there. I think there's a lot of players in them subs bench that probably say, could I push myself in to make that team stronger? And I think Kinvara have a bright future once they stick together. You know what I mean? That's the main thing now, to bring through the young, and I suppose as David said, the management team to stay on and drive that forward, because they obviously know them. They've got them to 2 county finals. Fair enough, they come up short, but they're getting there, and that's half the battle. And it's nothing to say that next year they can't have a really good cut at the Premier Intermediate and go there. So they're a club winning some good titles at underage, coming up along. So like there is a bright future in Kinvara. I definitely feel myself.
Yeah, I must say as well, John Fleming, like he really captured the emotion as well, for Meelick Eyrecourt, in his speech. Even David, when we were obviously talking about Loughrea, but we see what Teen Abbott and Irie did last year going on. For Meelick Eyrecourt, it's obviously a massive opportunity now. They play St Gabriel's of London or Turin in the Connacht final at the end of November. But particularly with Premier Intermediate coming on, you don't know when they'll get a chance in this competition again either.
Absolutely, and like you have to take it when you're there as well at the same time. Like especially when you get outside the county, you're looking at it there. Like I suppose like you're looking at the whole intermediate challenge across the whole All Ireland series, but there won't be too many challenges greater than Turin if they do get over Gabriel's. Like given what they've done over the last 2 years as well. At the same time, like Turin would hold their own in a lot of senior club championships around the country. So the challenges would be great, but like they can carry plenty of momentum now, and there's probably an element of weight off their shoulders as well. Like they've done all they can this year, you know what I mean? Like in terms of they've ticked the box and winning the Galway Intermediate Championship, and now it's a chance to kind of build upon that. Like, and if they were to capture a Connacht title, sure would mean the world to them. And you'd never know from there. They've been up against plenty of challenges, but they've a lot of good hurlers, but like they've really good forwards, which could go a long way. And they've a lot of scoring forwards as well, which are worth their weight in gold. And like, I was super impressed with all their defenders. Like I thought they were excellent against young Kinvara attack, and they show their experience. And I know they're a little bit bigger than some of the Kinvara players as well, but they use that size and strength and just a bit of cuteness to kind of shut Kinvara out and get over the line. So like you'd be hoping best of luck to them going forward. Like and to all the Galway teams represented in hurling and football from now on. You'd hope that we have a few more months yet of looking at clubs playing across the county and further afield.
If we just look at the junior final then, Ballinasloe Junior 1 winners for the third year in a row, 313 to 112 winners over Kiltormer at the weekend. It was interesting, Gerry, listening to Ballinasloe players in their interviews and everything after the game. The Connacht Championship was referenced quite a lot for them.
Yeah, it's I suppose they've done 3 in a row now, which in fairness to this management team, to come in and take them to 3 junior ones in a row, I think is a really, really special achievement for the club. But it does seem to be going at them that they just haven't got there. And I suppose they're coming up again against Eastleigh, who are a really, really good hurling team. And Eastleigh have got them, but I think there seems to be a hunger and there seems to be a real want to get over there. And wouldn't it be fantastic if Ballinasloe could be Connacht champions? 3 in a row Galway champions. Wouldn't it be fantastic if they could go on and annex that Connacht title? Because there's a passion there within it. And even the Loughrea supporters beside me or the Ballinasloe supporters around me in the stand on Sunday, like they were really passionate. God, when they won, there was some roar in the stand. Like it really was a real roar and a drive, and there was a great crowd there from Ballinasloe. And even afterwards, when the intermediate teams were coming out, just to the right, the left of the stand, it was all Ballinasloe there between the supporters and the families and the partners and all that. And there's a real good factor. And in fairness to the captains and the joint captains, they spoke really well. And Cathal O'Hanlon, as you said, he references the management references. I believe they're all a local management team except one of them. I think Rob Nolan is a Tipperary man. That's kind of he's there, so he's given them something different. So it'd be fantastic if they could win it. And I wish them the best of luck in their endeavours to annex that Connacht title that they so badly want.
Yeah, they're playing Moytura of Mayo in the semi-final, and it looks like they could have the game in Duggan Park for that one. I thought, Gerry, looking back on the game, the difference really was Ballinasloe's efficiency, the way they were able to get goals.
Yeah.
And for Kiltormer, unfortunately, they just had an off days on the freeze, especially.
Yeah, like as they always say, having a good free taker is worth its weight in gold. And it just, in fairness to the Loughrea guy, he just had an off day. He scored. Don't get me wrong, he scored 2, but he'd probably feel himself he left 3 or 4 more behind him. And it just didn't go for him. He scored 3. He didn't go for him on the day. But to be fair, Kiltormer's game plan was kind of gone after a couple of minutes when David Hayes went off, because I felt David was causing the Loughrea, but when he went off injured, I felt then that Alan Reynolds and the full back line really got to grips with, although the subs that came on actually did work well. But I just felt David Hayes was a bit of lost there in leadership. Patrick Hornigan scored 3 points in centre forward, and they were just that little bit slicker. Ballinasloe, to be fair, they'd already beaten them in the group in the Junior A, so they kind of had that over them as well. So they were just that little bit slicker all around, and I suppose they just had that know-how in the end to get over the lines. And as you said, the goals, they just poached the goals at the right time. And Odron Sheehan's goal near the end, I think, was the icing on the cake for him. You kind of felt, but they were always, I think they went, maybe I'm wrong, I think this went 1-7 to maybe 2 points at one stage there during the first half. And like once that goal went in, they just got a little bit of momentum. And in fairness to Kiltormer, and despite having Mike Ryan as manager there, they just weren't able to claw it back, But no shame in defeat. But Ballinasloe were well worthy winners.
Yeah, Patrick Hornigan got it back to 1-8-9, and then Cathal O'Hanlon got the goal, stretched it out to 2-9-9. It was big. They were just able to keep that lead. In fairness, David, I must say, Cathal O'Hanlon's performance 2-8 at the weekend, it was definitely up there with one of the performances of the weekend. He really makes that Ballinasloe attack click.
He's been doing it for quite a while for them, though, Paul. I think it was very good that when they played Salt Hill Knocknacarra, was it 2 or 3 years ago as well, when their first one, and Gerry referenced the noise and the colour. That was very much the case that day as well in Pearse Stadium, ahead of that Junior 1 final. But I saw him playing for the Galway Juniors a few years back, and I was impressed too. That competition that they run down in the dome down there, he was heavily involved in that as well at the same time. But I think just from a Ballinasloe point of view, I think it's important that Ballinasloe, we have strong Ballinasloe representation on our county teams, both hurling and football. I just think it's a big population base. It's a big area, and it would be great to see. You know what I mean? Like the 2 clubs, or the 1 club, but it's coming up both codes. It's just good to see, because there's a huge passion for the GA and Ballinasloe. There's so many supporters that you meet along the way if you're going to games and where you're from Ballinasloe, and they're only crying out for a bit of success. And there's a lot of people doing some really good work down there. So great to see that, and hopefully long may it continue.
Yeah, you can really sense even within Ballinasloe and within the town, they're really trying to drive things now.
Absolutely, yeah. As I said, it's a big area. Why wouldn't they? Obviously they have the competition with rugby there for a long time, with the school and things like that. But there's a hugely passionate GA people within the town, and within the surrounding area, who only want to see the club thrive. And imagine the pride they'd have if they, you know what I mean, a few years down the line, if they had one of their players representing Galway at adult level, put it on the maroon and white, or even at underage level. They're just, it's something that it might take a bit of time, but the kind of foundations are being put down there as a club to make strides, and long may it continue.
And just finally, Gerry, it is
they're just their facilities as well. To give credit to the Ballinasloe club, like their dressing rooms and their pitch, they have floodlit pitch and all that. There's lots of places that don't have floodlit pitch, so they have to be complimented as a club. They really are trying to put everything in place because they have competition with soccer there as well. They really are trying to make sure they have the best facilities for all the young boys and girls in Ballinasloe, to go the GA route. And if you look at it during the half time, I suppose, and if you look at that with all three finals the weekend, the young boys and girls and the pride and passion of playing at half time, it was really good to see that. And like the colour from the smile on the faces of all the young players, but especially the Ballinasloe. I think as David said, he's right there. There is a future there, and definitely the facilities they have, they definitely deserve to be getting players on, and that needs to start the academy levels, which I see now they are sending players in, and they're making strides. So once they start at that level, then really it's up to themselves to progress along and do that.
I was just about to say, Jerry, it's three in a row Junior One titles as well. It's a big achievement to be at that grade at Junior One too, because it can't. In previous years gone by, it's been a tough grade to sort of be at, particularly when you had Junior A running side by side. I know it wasn't this year.
Oh, absolutely. That is a big achievement. So I think like it's no fluke that they have won. The last few years they've been there. Like I think it was 3 years ago they beat Salthill to start this run off. And that was a Salthill team with Donal O'Shea in it. So like they started that off 3 years ago, and progressively got. And I think the goalkeeper, they were talking about him the last day, that he's kind of like a manufactured goalkeeper, but my God, he's really good. He made one or two vital stops the last day. Cormac Casey, he made some really good stops, and his puck outs are good. So if that's the type of manufactured goalkeepers that they seem to be making in Ballinasloe, fair play. Other teams might take lead from it, but he's really really good. And up the middle they were very very strong. They knew what they were about as well, and they had a bit of a game plan, and they stuck to it, and they kept playing positive hurling. And at Junior One, that's what it's about. And I suppose getting over the line, but three in a row is no more than Loughrea's. Three in a row is a fantastic achievement for Ballinasloe to be talking about yesterday, that they were three in a row county champions. I think that's the Achill-Acorn Junior One Championship. To be three in a row champions, I think is a huge achievement for them.
Absolutely. Well, that is all we do have time for on today's show. Big congratulations to all the club championship winners again, and thanks to Gerry and David for coming on to this week's podcast.